Welcome to the postponed Cwmtaf PSB Joint Overall Scrutiny Committee, Friday, 17th of December. I would also like to welcome Dr. Brendan de Cruz to the meeting as chair of the data subgroup of the Community Assessment Action Group. This meeting was postponed as a mark of respect for our colleagues in Merthyr Tydfil Council over the sad passing of a well-respected councillor for the Vane Award and former mayor, Councillor Howard Barrett, and our thoughts remain with his family and friends at this sad time. The Vice Chair, Councillor David Isaac, is unable to make the meeting this morning due to the fact that he works for the ambulance service and is undertaking extra shifts, and it's Black Friday as well. This is just testament to the current unprecedented and uncertain world we live in, and the pandemic is not over, and the work of the NHS in keeping us safe. Its aftermath will be felt for many years to come, and there will be a lot of work to resolve and restore public services. One of the matters that the Vice Chair and I discussed briefly is to ensure that all members of this committee are involved in this decision process. I'm just the chair, it's the members who make the committee. We all represent our communities, whether it's as a councillor for RCT or Merthyr, or cooperative members on behalf of the local health board, the community council, RCD citizens and Merthyr citizens. To that end, I will ask Sarah to write to all members before the next meeting, asking them for their thoughts, their personal thoughts, and what are the concerns of their constituents and residents and people in the street. We will then try and put that into a work programme so that we can focus our work over the next year or so. We need to, it's such a wide portfolio, wide ranging, and we need to concentrate on certain areas of concern. So without further ado, I'll start with item 1 on the agenda, and to remind members of the 5 core statutory functions of the Cwmtaf Joint Overall Scrutiny Committee. And it's incumbent on us that we comply with those functions and make sure in every decision we make that we abide by them. The second item on the agenda is, are there any declarations of interest? I can't see any hands. The third item are the minutes of the meeting of the 17th of September. So could somebody move the minutes as a true record?
I move, Chair.
And seconded?
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's carried. Item 4 on the agenda is an update on Q1 PSB work programme, and that's coming from Kirsty Smith, I believe. So Kirsty, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you to the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee of Cwmtaf Public Services Board for allowing us time and opportunity to provide you with an update on board activity since we last met in September 2021. PSB Chair Mark Brace sends his apologies but is unable to attend this rescheduled meeting of the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee and has worked with us and the PSB support team to prepare this update. So, looking at the future focus of the PSB. As a board, we last met in October and the agenda was very much focused on the future, both in terms of the focus and structure of the Public Services Board in Cwmtaf Morgannwg. As members will be aware, the current period is something of a transition as we manage undertaking an assessment of well-being in the context of a pandemic and COVID restrictions, as well as looking to the creation of one Cwmtaf Morgannwg Public Services Board. It's also important that we consider the board's existing objectives and what the PSB can do this year, as well as what work carries forward in preparing for the new Cwmtaf Morgannwg Wellbeing Plan, which will be published in 2023. The October meeting had representatives from the Community Safety Partnership, the Substance Misuse Area Planning Board and Cwmtaf Morgannwg Safeguarding Board to hear their experience of working within the regional partnership structures. Following discussions, members agreed that the way forward needs to be based on a foundation of information and suggest discussion with the RPB, the Regional Partnership Board, in terms of alignment and delivery mechanisms. There is full support for the direction of one Cwmtaf Morgannwg Public Services Board operating with strategic intent, and an action was taken back to work with representatives from the PSBs and the delivery board draft a timeline for the merger and identify work that would need to be undertaken. PSB welcomed the JOSC recommendation given via the chair at the October meeting that over the medium term, the Public Services Board must demonstrate its value and role in improving the delivery of public services, and that its purpose makes a positive difference to the residents of Merthyr and RCT. We feel that the work underway regarding the assessment helps this, and the engagement work that it has given PSB officers such as myself and Lisa the opportunity to speak with residents and groups and find out about what the positive difference the PSB could make should look like. The committee will appreciate that, as with most other areas and organisations, the ambitions of the PSB have been curtailed by the challenges of the last couple of years, where focus has quite rightly had to be on the response to the pandemic. However, the community impact assessment commissioned into the impact of COVID by both PSBs, Cwm Taf and Bridgend, and the RPB was an example of how we are able to react to circumstances. And this has provided good information on the current and future needs for communities and will feed into the ongoing assessment work. So there's an overview of the wellbeing assessment and regional working. This is going to be very light touch, as we have Brendan de Cruz here who will give more detail. But as members will be aware, the PSB needs to undertake an assessment of wellbeing to be published in May 2022. This is a joint assessment with Bridgend PSB, resulting in one Cwm Taf Morgannwg wellbeing assessment. And as previously mentioned, we are also collaborating with the Regional Partnership Board as much as possible. They need to undertake and publish a population needs assessment by April 2022, so resources, intelligence, information and opportunities for involvement will be shared as much as possible. The support teams have also been working closely on drafting the documents and ensuring that same sources are used and key messages read across both documents. We decided to extend the period of engagement beyond the 100 days initially discussed through our work with Co-Production Network for Wales. December 17th, today, is the official end of this work, and the online conversation tool will be closed this afternoon. Co-Production Network for Wales have also been asked to provide additional support to analyse all of the engagement will be produced, summarising the key findings and reflecting the scope of the conversations held. The draft data report has been produced by Practice Solutions Limited, and that was available as an embedded document in the members pack on page 22. It was received by Bridgend Public Services Board earlier this week on the 13th and has been shared virtually with Cwm Taf PSB for comment. The assessment is still on schedule to be published at the end of April 2022, with data and the engagement report being shared as supporting documents. Moving on to ongoing work. Given the reporting pattern of the Public Services Board, the October meeting did not feature quarterly updates from the objective leads on the existing wellbeing objectives, which are thriving communities, healthy people, strong economy, and tackling loneliness and isolation. Time is being given on the agenda for January's PSB for updates to be given on a highlight exception basis. And we will also be asking objective leads and members to look at how we can refocus existing work streams for the future and the new wellbeing plan so that work is not lost or overlooked. Work continues against the current objectives as set out to members in the update on Q1 PSB work programme, and I'll refer you to page 13 of your document pack. As mentioned, further detail will be expected following the January PSB, but areas of note include the community hubs and neighbourhood networks initiated under the Thriving Communities objective continue to be used as part of the COVID response and supporting vulnerable residents. PSB officers have also been making use of these networks and hubs as part of the engagement work for the wellbeing assessment. As set out in the update report, sustainability of these hubs continues to be a concern and will likely be at the heart of the January update for this objective. The Chair of PSB, Mark Brace, has met with the community's own implementation group about the sustainability of this project, and the PSB will work with the group to explore funding opportunities to maintain the benefits of this work to the communities involved and to explore how to widen these initiatives to other areas. The ongoing work of the vulnerability profile developed under the Healthy People objective is continuing to be piloted in RCT. It's nearing completion and a final analysis is expected before the end of the financial year, with further rollout then across the region. The PSB, through colleagues in Merthyr Council, have been involved in Public Health Wales's participation in Good Fair Work for Health, Wellbeing and Equity panel, now known as the Fair Work panel. This has been looking at the wider benefits of employment on health, Views are being sought from board members as to how the work can best support partnership action and where there are opportunities to collaborate to achieve mutually beneficial goals of creating, supporting and normalising fair work, improving skills and access to fair work, as well as monitoring and evaluating the impacts of efforts to increase participation in fair work, using data and intelligence to direct their efforts. RCT and Merthyr have both submitted bids to the National Lottery Committee on the Mind Our Future grant programme around children and young persons' mental health, as well as the impact of loneliness and isolation. £10 million has been made available to create and implement a vision for a more resilient and mentally healthy future for young people in the community. The PSB supported and were involved in shaping both applications, and we await news. The board also continues to look for opportunities to maximise contribution to the 7 national wellbeing goals, and received a presentation from Brecon Beacons National Park and their management plan at the last meeting. This sparked an interest in members looking to collaborate as much as possible, as well as suggesting that the January Public Services Board meeting devote some time to look at the climate and nature emergencies, so that we collectively understand what is already underway in the region, and where potentially the PSB can add further value with a view to informing the future wellbeing plan. Similarly, the PSB have supported a bid to the National Institute for Health Research for the creation of the Cwmtaf Morgannwg Health Determinants Research Collaboration. Funding is available to create a research infrastructure with a focus on the determinants of health inequalities. If successful, the funding will allow the region to establish the first regional multidisciplinary research team in Wales and provide the learning and experience to develop a model that can be rolled out nationally. The committee will, of course, be provided with an update on any progress or success with these funding bids. So that's it from me. If members have any questions for the chair or the board, please let me know and we can take them back. The Public Services Board next meets on the 18th of January. Thank you very much for your time.
Kirsty, any questions from members? One of the thoughts we had in the last week, and is reflected on page 10 of the minutes, is to use the RAG system, red, amber, green, in reports to make life easier for scrutiny. I think, looking at the red issues or the green issues is what's going well and what is of great concern. I just wonder if that can be adopted in future reports.
Thanks, Chair. I believe that was in relation to the wellbeing objectives delivery plans.
Okay.
So as we mentioned, they weren't discussed in the October meeting. They will be going in January. But when we've discussed this with the objective leads, there is a feeling that we're not sure how informative that would be, given the long-term focus of these objectives. The likelihood is that the majority of actions would go straight to amber because it's too soon to see if they're at critical red, and we wouldn't achieve anything for them to go green. So amber would be used as a kind of holding status. We're not sure how beneficial members would find that, but it is something we're looking to explore and may try out for January.
That's great. Thanks very much, anyway. The sad news over the last few weeks is the deaths of children. Star Hobson, Ella Rose, Clover and Arthur Bingo Hughes. And I noticed on page 24 about the risk factors for young children. I mean, it's been exacerbated by mental health and the pandemic. Is that a high priority for the board at this stage, particularly over the sad deaths of these children?
Some of this will be picked up under safeguarding rather than specifically the PSB. But as we look towards the regional structures that need to be in play, we are looking to work far closely with the operational boards. So as I mentioned, the Substance Misuse Area Planning Board, Community Safety Partnership and the Safeguarding Board. And obviously key messages and critical concerns will be escalated to the PSB. Children and young persons' mental health is definitely something that the PSB is looking to do some more work around. As I mentioned, we've put 2 bids we've supported into the Mind Our Futures national lottery bid. Merthyr, I believe, is a local authority-led bid, and RCTs is being led by Interlink. Children and young people have been very involved in the application process and in having a say in how any successful project should look and be delivered to meet their own identified needs in their communities regarding their own mental health and provision there.
Is it an area of concern as a result of the recent deaths that this is happening in our communities is a big concern that needs to be addressed.
Regarding the recent terrible news, PSB hasn't met since October, so we haven't formally come together as a board since the news has discussed those tragic circumstances.
Yeah.
It may well have been discussed operationally within the safeguarding board, but nothing at public services board level.
Thank you very much. Such sad news in recent times. I'm glad to see on page 14 of the report that there's a resilient hubs being prioritised, and I think it's a very good idea that we bring the services closer to the community. And therefore, is that again a priority that we move towards community resilient hubs from now on? Is that a priority for the board?
Members may remember that we started the Resilient Hub work with one in RCT and one in Merthyr. So it was the Ferndale Hub in RCT and Calonlas in the Gurnos in Merthyr. The model has been rolled out across RCT, where there's been community asset transfer potentially, or work to develop a hub with an identified community need. So I think there's 7 currently operational. The rollout isn't looking to be replicated in Merthyr because the existing hub in the Gurnos has been quite a demand on the local authority. There are community-based hubs in Merthyr, but not part of the same network. So as I mentioned in my update, sustainability of these hubs is a concern. So it's one eye on where can we replicate this and continue to roll out, but we've got to secure the future of the ones already existing because they're being utilised by the community. So I think we'd be remiss to look to develop further before we secure what's already in place.
Yeah, I think it's certainly something that the scrutiny committee can look at as we progress. It's an excellent idea. It's a good idea actually, that to get services closer to the community with community resilient hubs, etc., for all services, so that the community know where to go and can ask the right questions and go from there. So it's a very good idea and something probably as a scrutiny committee we can look at as we move forward. Are there any further questions, members? Well,
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just I've got an update if it's possible. It will help. There's a point that you raised, Chair. It's about the sad deaths of the youngsters. What I can do it, and I don't know if it's picked up with Mark and his team there, but as you're probably aware, I'm the vice chair of the Police and Crime Panel, which oversees the policing in South Wales. And about a week ago, I chaired the meeting, and the Commissioner and Jeremy Vaughan, the Chief Constable, presented their new aligned community safety strategy for South Wales, which clearly identified the issues about safeguarding, violence against children, women, young ladies, and across the community. So the concerns that you might have had about the PSB work are outlined, and of course it's cross-cutting because the Commissioner and the Chief Constable feed in at that higher level and with the health board and with the communities, etc. So I just want to reassure you that that has been addressed in a formal way in a significant strategy for South Wales. The question that I was going to ask is 2 things, basically. How are we ensuring that best practice that's identified in one area is promulgated and is passed to other areas, is my first. And in relation to the hubs, that last comment that was made, yeah, I do know, because I'm involved heavily in loads of community projects, both in Merthyr and in RCT, the work that Diana's doing up in the hub in the Gurnos. But there's also a magnificent centre, a hub, which is up in Gellidaig, the Gellidaig Foundation, where they've just got a recently opened £3.2 million wellbeing centre. And I was up there with the chief executive of the health board about a month ago, and we are going to partner up with them to do a lot of work about public health there. So what I'm saying, I'm assuming that Mark and his team are already aware of it, but if not, it's worth a visit, seriously, because they're at the heart of a significant community, and I'm talking self-funded and really working well up there. I'll leave that. My question finally would have been, what are we doing about promulgating best practice across the region? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mel. Yes, we are aware of the Gelli Dig hub. Ultimately, any of these hubs, be they originated from the PSB or from within the community, need to be delivered and reflect community need. And there will be circumstances where if they come up from the community that they need to be community owned. And I think it's right in those circumstances for the PSB to take a step back, because I think to a lot of communities and community groups, Public Services Board, unfortunately, represents red tape, and they've been able to do and deliver fantastic work there without our intervention. So I think being involved now wouldn't be of benefit, but certainly we'll be looking to see how they've been able to be so successful and where that model could maybe be replicated elsewhere, or we as public services could replicate an environment that would support similar work going on without it being driven by the PSB necessarily. But trying to understand the circumstances that brought about the success without the intervention from public services.
Yeah, fully support that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, certainly worth a visit there, so we can mark that down for the future. I can't see any more hands raised. Or Jill?
Yes, it's just regarding the community hubs. We're a pretty new one in the sense that in my community, we were originally Community Development Association, but we've now moved to new premises and everything, and we've actually become what is Taftswell and Nangarrow Community Hub. Now we are self-financing. We don't get anything, so all the work that we're doing is by ourselves and sort of thing. And it's good to see it moving on. It's not been particularly easy, obviously, with everything that's been going on as well. But we have now, particularly in January, we've got a men's mental health group starting up, which is also very important, because I sometimes think we look at the overall picture, but we also have to recognise that there are a lot of issues for men. And when you look at a certain age group with the men, there is a lot of suicides within age groups and everything in men. So I think this is an important step, we feel, as a community forward. But we've got a lot of other things that are moving forward as well. And we have the Alzheimer's group, and we've got different ones, and that, groups now coming to the hub and setting up. So we're hoping to move this further on and virtually get as many as we can, because this is what our community wants. We're lucky in a bigger sense than what a lot of other communities. So I don't think we've got the deprivation that some communities have got in Taftswell, but we have different needs. And I think this is where the hubs come in, is that it is to where the community is and what they need. Ours is different than Ferndale, it's different than the Gurnos, but we have sections that need help, and we're finding that the hub is actually working for these people. So it isn't a question, it's just sort of to build on the fact that these local community hubs are working, whether they be PSB or set up by the community, which ours is.
Thank you, Jill. I think that's a good point. This should be a key focus for scrutiny, is to move towards resilient hubs, services delivered locally, all sorts of services. And I think that's what people want. That's what they understand and respect. And I think it's something we should concentrate in the future, to move towards these sort of hubs in all areas, because as Councillor Benetto says, there are different areas of deprivation, poverty, problems, etc., throughout the county borough, etc., and Merthyr, all different areas and different needs. So it's not one fits all. It's about providing the services that the community requires. So I think it's something that the scrutiny can look at over the next year and try and progress for the benefit of our people. I can't see any more hands left.
Chair, I had my hand up. Sorry, Chair. Just to say what Kirsty said as well. We've got a few so-called hubs, but all communities adapt, and as has been said, there's so much red tape that sometimes these and I think there's many out there that are doing an excellent job. And as you said earlier, it's financial support sometimes, and that little leg up to keep them going that helps, rather than the PSB getting actively involved within that specific organisation. So there are lots, as we've just said, and it's that little support, that leg up, that's needed, rather than total involvement of the PSB. Thanks, Chair.
As well, I think you're right. I think it's looking at each community and the needs, assessing the needs of the community, responding in kind. Then,
yeah.
So I can't see any hands up. So the recommendations on page 13, 2.1 and 2.2. Can I have a mover for those recommendations?
So moved, Chair.
And a seconder?
Second, Chair.
I don't think there's any dissent. I don't think I need to do a roll call. So that's been passed. Thank you very much. So we move on to item 5 on the agenda. I welcome Dr. Brendan D'Cruz to the meeting. And it's an update on the work of the Community Assessment Action Group. Dr. D'Cruz.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee for giving me the opportunity to present the work of the Community Assessment Action Group and on the PSB's Wellbeing Assessment. I think the last time you received an update was from Dr. Tom Powell in September 21, where he would have talked about the approach. Just to remind members that the approach is all about joint working between the Bridgend Public Sector Board and the Cwmtaf Morgannwg Regional Partner Board through an overarching Community Assessment Action Group chaired by Dr. Tom Powell. And there are 2 subgroups, one of which is the engagement subgroup, which is co-chaired by Rebecca Goodhand and Jenny Mushangarani Monjero, and the data subgroup, which I chair. And I believe that Councillor Capel, you've joined the overarching group. The engagement group has been very much involved in co-production as one of its principles, and has involved the co-production network of Wales in terms of supporting how engagement and involvement of the people in the communities that it serves are involved in their activities. So I'll give you a very quick update on what the engagement group has done. They've met on a weekly basis, and they've shared bilingual toolkits to support the various colleagues and groups that have been carrying out the engagement activities. And a huge number of different groups have been involved, ranging from Knit and Natter to Brownies to Girl Guides, Rangers. They've also worked through community hubs and neighbourhood networks. They've also started to talk to veterans groups, ASD Rainbows, and various other networks and events such as remembrance festivals. There've been bespoke hackathon events. There've been engagement with older people, people with learning disabilities, and people with mental health challenges. So there's been a variety of engagement activity. Similarly, there's been work through the voluntary councils, such as Interlink RCT, Voluntary Action Merthyr Tydfil, and the Bridgend Association for Voluntary Organisations, and their community level engagement activities. And there've also been some Better Futures sessions focusing on younger people, thinking about what they want the future to look like and what needs to change in order to achieve that. As Kirsty said earlier, the period of consultation has been extended through to today. And now there'll be a period of analysis activity, which will involve the co-production network again in terms of analysing what's coming out of those engagement things, and a report produced that will feed into the assessment document that's expected on the 14th of January. The engagement group itself is considering how it will now operate in the future, and whether or not there is still the appetite to keep that momentum going. But the principles of co-production have been really, really important, and involving and engaging the communities in terms of making decisions that will affect people for the years ahead. The data group that I chair has met 5 times, and the first 4 sessions were all about focusing on the different pillars of well-being, which include cultural, economic, environmental, and social. And we had a final meeting on the, I think it was the 26th of November, where we looked at the data report produced by Practice Solutions Limited. And there's been very, very good kind of representation. Lots and lots of people contributed to that, people who live, work, and you know, have real involvement across Cwm Taf Morgannwg. And that data report, I believe, has been shared with the Bridgend PSB members at their 30th of December meeting, and also via email to the Cwm Taf PSB. And the whole purpose there is to sense check and make sure that it says and captures accurately what people think and feel, and also to think about how it can be better presented. So including things such as infographics and fact sheets as part of all that. So in terms of next steps, the draft assessment itself is due in January, and we've asked members to nominate themselves to be part of a small PSB working group to scrutinize and sign this off for consultation by 7th of February. And then this will be sent out for a period of consultation, which will run from the 14th of February to 28th of March. And this will involve other stakeholders such as the Office of Future Generations Commissioner, Welsh Government, and also going back to the groups that contributed to the data, and very much looking at kind of, you said, we listened, and making sure that this is an accurate representation of the things that were discussed during the various meetings that we've had. And then there'll be a period from April through to publication on the 30th of April, where final revisions and changes can be incorporated, ready for the final assessment, as Kirsty described it earlier. So that's kind of a very brief overview of what we've been doing. I'm happy to take any questions. And if there are any questions to be fed back to the PSB, then please raise them, and Kirsty will take them back for the meeting on 18th of January.
Dr. De Cruz, I went to the meeting, sitting amongst a lot of experts. It's such a wide-ranging issue. There's so much work being undertaken. I felt in the meeting that there was some frustration by the professionals that perhaps we're going through this exercise, well worthwhile exercise, but perhaps the policies of government are not being influenced, and that we keep going through this exercise every 5 years, asking the same questions. And yet policy or strategy doesn't come forward. That came from I felt that in the meeting. I'm not an expert by all means. And I felt there was a frustration that they're doing all this work, understandably, and worthwhile, but it's not influencing the decision makers. Is that something that you feel, Dr. De Cruz, that we need to plus a more overarching government strategic decision-making process, and basically to make sure all this work and all these issues, there are some policy changes? Is that something that I mean, I'm new to all this, so is this something that you feel on behalf of the committee?
So certainly something that we've picked up in the conversations we've had with the range of stakeholders that were there, and you know, it's also my personal view that, you know, in legislation it's enshrined that we do this activity every 5 years, and that it's a very much as kind of a snapshot where we rush around and we try and work out what data we have and where it is. Whereas if we were continually doing that over a period of time, and then looking at that 5-year period as a snapshot of what's available, perhaps we'd be able to look back and think about the difference that we've made and how we've actually, you know, embedded that in policy, in strategy, in terms of the actions that are being carried out by the range of services that we offer. Whereas where it is at the moment is very much about, you know, who's doing what, where is it, what can we use? And it's almost like repeating the same activity every 5 years. And I know that there's a meeting in January to start to think about how we could do things differently, perhaps how we collect data differently, and perhaps how we, you know, embed ongoing continual engagement with our communities rather than having to rely on this particular exercise. But you know, it is what it is because of the Future Generations Act and the way in which the population needs are carried out. You know, kind of until we can feed back to the decision makers at the very top that laws need to change, and, you know, kind of approaches have changed, that co-production is very important, that communities' voices are really, really important. You know, I see this happening again in 5 years, but, you know, who knows, maybe we can influence that kind of change by, you know, perhaps establishing repositories and observatories that kind of look at what's going on and being more reflective in terms of the indicators that are set for us in terms of showing how we're making a difference through our services. But, you know, these are conversations as opposed to sort of, you know, direct actions that we can influence right now.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's something for scrutiny to consider is what change has all this work had on people's lives, because after COVID, when COVID ends, life is going to be so much different, and I think it's worth looking at what has changed, what can change, and what needs to happen to make these changes on the floor and affect people's lives. I think it's so important, and the professionals are there. There's such a wealth of knowledge and so much information, but that has to go somewhere, and decisions have to be made. And perhaps it's something that scrutiny can look at. Kirsty, do you want to come in and add to anything to that?
I think the majority of frustration, as you said, is that increasingly it feels like this is a bit of a lip service exercise where we undertake the assessment. We spend a lot of time and effort really trying to engage with our communities and hear what matters to them, but we're not able to guarantee or promise any changes as a result of their giving their time.
Yeah.
And the last thing we want to do is be in a position where we're raising expectations and then falling short of them, and not through fault of our own, but because legislation or policy doesn't really allow us to influence. And specifically around funding, you know, there's community groups that are doing fantastic work on a shoestring because they're only funded for 1 year or for 18 months. COVID has shown that money can be released where there's a definite need and there's a real risk to the community. Money is made available, and it's made available quickly, and it's been able to get directly to the groups that can have the biggest impact. Why isn't that possible during normal time? Why aren't we resourcing these groups to carry on doing fantastic work? Why are we always looking for innovation and change when we're risking losing ongoing services? So I think that was a lot of the frustration coming through, that some of the fantastic work is through short-term funding and not sustainable.
That's right, and I think the experts said that in the meeting. They go to the people who they are trying to influence and trying to make changes work for them, and they say, well, you asked me that question 5 years ago and nothing's happened, so why are you asking me the question again? And I think it comes down to that basic ideology of, look, you know, we try to influence change, and I think it's something that this committee can certainly look at. What has changed? What has been the legislative changes as a result of all this excellent work by a lot of professionals? Thank you both for that. Are there any other questions from members? So
yes, Chair. My hand's up.
Well, yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to make an observation, if I may, on what's just been said, and I totally agree with what you just said, Gareth. I mean, community risk assessments, as you quite say, for many, many years, like a lot of other assessments, they have been done because we have failed, that our effective leadership hasn't been done, before we're not engaging with the community. Because the truth of the matter is, we wouldn't need to do a community assessment or what the community needs are if on a daily basis the community were actually aligned to the strategic vision of what organizations are actually doing, and of course where the communities and community members were actually feeding in. Where the truth of the matter is, an assessment that's done every 5 years, it basically says what it is. It's, you've lost track, you don't know when you then. And the other question I'm going to raise, and Gareth, and there's elected representatives here, if you were to go out, and I do it regularly, I go out and I meet the organizations that I work with, they don't care about community assessments. What they care about is what's happening to them on a daily basis. And they regard community assessments, these high level, they're just processes that organizations get, which gather data, as you quite rightly say, Guy, you go to these meetings and I go to them as well. We're very data rich, but we're intelligence and lived experience poor, because what you've got is a mismatch. You're having all this information as a process, and then people are not following it through. And I think the strategy for every issue is, you know, we think of one family in our communities and we say, what difference is this strategy doing to them, whether it's a child, you know, I talk about a family with a child, a mum, a dad, and a grandparent. Because if it's not engaging one of those four, then any strategy, it's just not working, because it's been designed for an organization to feel better about itself, rather than individuals in our communities feeling the difference. And I'm going back to Kirsty's point over there. You're right, there are brilliant hubs, and Jill's point, there are hubs going on that are working tirelessly and making a difference, and they haven't got the time or the inclination to really sign up to providing an organizational strategy and assessment, because they're too busy getting on with it. And I'm just giving the reality check, and we all know it's the case. Look, as you know, I was in the police for 34 years, and I was doing these all the time. And then someone's got to get it at some stage, is that at the very top, organization and leaders have got to start meaning it, and are going to be thinking about community engagement every day. And Brendan, can I just make one comment, please? I don't know if Brendan's still there.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Sorry, Brendan. First of all, I love Jack Skellington, and I hope it isn't a nightmare before Christmas on your shirt in front of you. It's just picking up on some of the stuff. The Health Board has just been doing a huge program of work about community liaison and doing all this, and has produced a document called Our Community, Your Health. Now, Natasha Weeks has been leading on this on the Health Board, and this huge list of contact, they've gone through a process of finding out all the community influencers and all the contact points throughout Clontarf Morgannwg. So what I would want to say is, if you haven't, I'm sure you have with the Health Board, but if you haven't, please link in with Natasha Weeks, the communications lead on this, because I'm talking about promulgating stuff. I wouldn't want you to be going for months and months and months looking for things when there's someone that's already spent months and months and months and's got the information ready to share. And other than that, thank you to Dr. De Cruz, and I wish you a Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, and I will take that forward. And I think that point about having to look for things that already exist is a really important one, and it's well made.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that's a big issue for all of us, is that we don't over-elaborate the tick box exercise, but we look at positive change for people on the street. And I think this has come during the pandemic. People think more about the environment, about what's happening to them. And I think they want positive change from the top. We can try and influence change, but we can't affect change. And I think that is something that perhaps the scrutiny committee could influence. And look, we want to see what has changed since last time, and not keep going through this exercise every 5 years. So that's excellent. Thanks for your contributions on that. And thank you, Dr. De Cruz and Kirsty, for your contributions. And we'll take this forward. There are two recommendations on page 19, 2.1, 1, 2, and 3. Can somebody move those recommendations, please?
So moved. And seconded, yeah.
Thank you. There's no dissent. I won't go through a roll call, so those recommendations are approved. Thank you very much all. It was a very good debate, and we'll take some of these issues forward. It may be difficult for some people, but I think it's important that we make the point that we want to see change and proof of that change. I now go to item 6 on the agenda. Basically, it's on the same theme. It's a report back from the training session we had with Dr. Dave McKenna a few weeks ago. I've had a few sessions with Dr. McKenna, very enlightening. It gives you a lot of tools in which to scrutinize areas, etc. And I think even at that meeting, people felt, well, same as we just said all along, we need to try and prove to that people that we can influence change and affect change. And I think that has got to be the process of scrutiny, is to make sure that changes goes to the people who've requested those changes. And I think that has come through very clearly from the training session and from the debates today. So a couple of issues that we are going to take forward relating to the training is to have a pre-meeting possibly of committee members to look at what questions can we ask of those who are coming to the meeting. Briefing notes to all committee members. I think also writing to the chair of the PSB with the committee recommendations so they can influence at the highest level, and then perhaps using working groups so we can scrutinise certain areas that are of concern to us and to the community, because we can't scrutinise the whole work of the PSB. It's too far wide ranging. So I think those actions have come out of the training session, and indeed today's excellent session, that we need to perhaps be more focused on change rather than the tick boxing exercise every 5 years. And I think that should be a clear message, in my view, from this committee as we move on. And of course, bring in services local to people with resilient hubs. That's certainly a fantastic challenge and the right way forward. So thank you all members. That's the end of my item. We now move on to information reports, and I would like to draw the attention of the committee to the letter that we requested, a meeting between the Minister and the chairs of the PSB. That was an interesting response from the Minister. It's been the first time, as I understand it, by Julie James at the time, and it's on page 103 to 107 of the report. And the conclusion of the Minister was that this meeting should have happened earlier, and she would encourage the incoming Minister at the time to meet the chairs of the PSBs on more often than they've done in the past. And I think that's a good thing, because they're now influencing the person who's in charge of the ministry for dealing with the legislation. And there was a couple of interesting comments. One on page 106 is that they're talking about merging PSBs. I wonder if that's the direction of travel now, is that there are too many PSBs, that we merge the PSBs to have one or two or three voices, rather than a lot of PSBs going in their own way, and there's more integration. That seemed to come clear from the Minister. As it says on page 106, the volume of partnership meetings, there's too many meetings possibly and not enough action by the sound of it. So it'd be interesting to see how the Minister reacts to the chairs of the PSBs and how they take this forward. I suspect there may be some sort of reorganization of PSBs following the pandemic, and I think that's a good thing, so we can concentrate on the lower level activities so that affects communities. So that's all that I have to say. Are there any comments from members? No, thank you all very much. I think it's been a very interesting debate. There's a lot of actions that we can take forward, and I think the message is clear. We want to see change at the lowest level that affects people's daily lives. And I think as a scrutiny, if we can somehow influence that decision-making process, because there's so many experts out there and they've got a lot to say, but the frustration is that it's not affecting change. And I think that has come around crystal clear from this meeting. And I'd like to thank you all for attending. Wish you all a very Merry Christmas, a safe journey to the kitchen. Enjoy the rest of Black Friday if you can, and I'll see you in January. We will get a note out to all members asking for their views. It's your committee, I'm just chairing it. We want to see your views. Come across clear this morning what we should be doing, and let's see if we can influence change at the highest level so that people in the street can see that change is happening. Thank you all very much. Have a very Merry Christmas. Enjoy a new year, and stay safe.